Yes. Hmm. So some of us, when we come together, we can find common ground. So before going to the Treaty of Versailles, just a quick prediction, and I guess you guys know how it goes. Do you think the victors of World War One, the U.S., Great Britain, and France, do you think they will find common ground with Germany? How many of you think they will find common ground in Germany and make a treaty that's a win-win for both sides? How many of you think it's going to be a a blame fest that you did it, so you have to do this and pay for this? Some of you do think that. Huh? So we're going to go to the Treaty of Versailles quick, and I want you to take out the documents that I gave you there, because you're going to take out some notes, some quick notes, not long. Here it is. I'm going to go through it. We can discuss it, and in class, if you have questions, let me know. This is the Treaty of Versailles. Please put away your phone. Take out your note sheet. Please write it under the last heading where it says Treaty of Versailles key conditions. So as you can see, if you can see, you could write down anything, read it, and you could write down the key conditions as they talk about this. And we'll focus on this for the next 3 to 4 minutes. So, Treaty of Versailles, you notice the first 4 conditions, right? Who is it about? What are the first 4 conditions about? Germany. It says Germany must admit war guilt. That's a blame fest right there. Germany lose colonies. That's but as some of you may think that they're gonna, because Germany is put as the loser of the war, they have to lose some stuff. Germany pays $30 billion in reparations. That's basically almost everything or everything of the war costs. And that's because in this document, I'm not showing Wilson's 14 points. If you took U.S. history 2 years ago, you would understand that you would remember that is U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's 14 points on a peaceful world. And one of Woodrow Wilson's conditions was for Germany not to pay any costs of the war, or at least not to have Germany be the only party to shoulder the costs of the war. Yet, in right here, Treaty of Versailles, Wilson's wishes wasn't granted because France and Great Britain wanted Germany to pay for all of its war crimes. And number 4, Germany must disarm. What does it mean to disarm? Yes, thank you. No more military, or at least limited military. And there are other conditions. You need to write all of them. Write the ones that you think are really important. So the League of Nations was created. The League of Nations was that United Nations type of organization that was thought to keep world peace. Yes. Yes. But as you learn later, and Mr. Aton will touch more upon it, it failed. Failed. That's a spoiler. It failed. How did it fail? You will learn later on as we learn the unit after the interwar. And here, number 9, members of the League of Nations must respect certain innocence of one member nation. Basically, a rough translating is means all countries should try to fight for peace for other countries. To be translated, if one country gets hurt, then other countries must come and protect the other country. Members must submit to all disputes, meaning the members must work together to work on. last thought. Do some of you think the conditions that you just read, do you think it's fair? So Germany was the loser of the war, do you think was fair or not? Hungary, yeah, Bulgaria. Yes, that's a good point to think about, and that's basically because France and England, Great Britain, that is, have beef with Germany. So, what do you think these conditions will lead to? What's going to happen in the world, in Germany? Economy's going to crash. See about that, but that's a good guess. Good guess. So, we're going to talk something about the world and the global Great Depression or the Great Depression. How many of you remember a bit about the Great Depression from U.S. history a couple of years ago? What do you remember about the Great Depression, if any? Yes, part of the stock market crash. Did any one of you did the monopoly thing with Miss Duarte? Yes. So the Great Depression started in the US, but as you learned, there are some underlying conditions already there in other places. So the event that sparked it is the 1929 stock market crash that some of you have alluded. I alluded as well. So to try to summarize this is over speculation of stocks or overproduction of goods leading to falling prices. To explain it simply is that because there was too many goods that were produced, people cannot consume it enough. There's a surplus of goods, the supply and demand didn't match. Speculation of stocks. There were people buying stocks and evaluating stocks beyond its price. So when the prices drop, people don't get the same amount of money that they used to get from the stock, right? The stocks drop in terms of value, and that means people get less money they what they put in those stocks. So as we know from U.S. history, banks have been closed, business closed, and as a result of business being closed, people lose jobs. But as we're about to learn, this issue that was not limited in the U.S. It affected other parts of the world. As we're going to learn, other countries after the war were debtors to the U.S. They borrowed money from the U.S. Great Britain and France, even the victors of the war, had to borrow money from the U.S. Why? Because they were heavily damaged from the war. Do you guys remember yesterday when we look at the number of casualties and deaths from war? Remember the deaths in terms of countries like Great Britain and France, Germany. Yes, and the U.S. because part of it because the war took place in Europe, and a good part of it is because the U.S. came in the last year or two of the war. We did not suffer as much casualties as these, but because they need rebuilding of infrastructure, right? They need rebuilding of a lot of things. They borrowed money from the U.S. So when the U.S. economy collapsed, guess what happened to them? They collapsed too because they rely on U.S. money to keep and U.S. trade to keep their economic functioning well. And when U.S. economy doesn't function well, they don't function well as well. So in between this whole thing was called the Dawes Plan. As you can see, basically the Dawes Plan was the plan for U.S. to help out Germany. As you alluded, yes, Germany economy suffered because part of it is the reparation. A good part of it is the reparations they have to pay. So they tried to um, produce more money banks, more bank bills. But the problem of that, when you produce more money, inflation happens, and that devalue. When you have too much of a thing, the value of that thing drops. So that did not have help Germany's economy. Germany had troubles paying back loans to the U.S. So what did the U.S. do? The U.S. loans out money to Germany, so Germany could pay those loans to England and France. England and France could pay Germany's payment back to the U.S. They thought that the loans would help Germany pay back to the U.S., but it didn't, because U.S. not only that Germany has to pay reparations to both all three countries, it has to pay back the loans on top of that as well. And as you can guess, when the stock market crash happens, it makes Germany's ability to pay even less. So Germany had trouble paying back due to a lot of issues, both in terms of the conditions of the Treaty of Versailles, as well as the state of the global economy. It's not only just these countries who are suffering. It's the global south, it's the colonies as well. So in places like Nigeria, in places like in Asia, and a lot of the European colonies in Africa, they struggle to maintain their economic growth. So their problem is twofold, right? Some of the colonial powers, because they're suffering back at home, England and France, what do? They cut off funding or any kind of money spending or investment in those colonies. Colonies rely on exporting their goods to the global market, but when prices fall, that means they cannot earn as much money, earn as much trading money as they used to. Um, and some England and France took resources from their colonies to help fund their economy that is struggling as well. So as you get regarding England, France, Western world, and France, Germany, and one related to Nigeria that represents the colonial stuff, the global south, the colony. I'm going to read an article, and these articles are not too long. I summarize them. Each group gets one of these. If you're in a groups of 3 or 4, one of you will have to read one of those articles. You gotta share the load, and then you're gonna write down your notes of whether you see an economic impact or political impact / change in it. So if you just see one of them in the articles, that's all right, because um, of these articles are catered towards one kind of change. Sometimes you can do 2 kind of change. You will read for one, and then you will talk with your group mates, and you will take down notes on what your group mates have write down for changes for the other one. Now, if you want to do this assignment individually, let me know, and I'll give you all that you need to read. So I will be giving out please get back to your groups from yesterday. Individually let me know, so I will give you. Yesterday.